Today, I'll show you how to make sure your skin tones are perfect in Premiere Pro. Hey guys, I'm Raphael and welcome to the channel where our goal is to always fix it in camera and then finesse it in post. And I always appreciate the early thumbs up on the video because skin tones are awesome. But sometimes they are not and they need to be tweaked to make them look right. Let's say the white balance was off a little bit, or the exposure of the footage wasn't perfect, or there are color casts from the environment. Or even if your monitor isn't perfectly calibrated, you may not notice the skin tones are off. The process I will show you today will let you know and correct any of those issues. But this process also assumes that the footage is already base corrected. If you shot in log, you'll first have to correct it to a color profile like Rec 709. I made a video how to color grade C-Log footage in Premiere Pro. You can find that link in the description. I'll show two ways to do this, one with the built-in tools in Premiere with Lumetri, and one with the Redgiant Colorista plugin. I did the same tutorial in Final Cut using Color Finale and the built-in color tools there. The link is also in the description. The process is simple, and with a little bit of knowledge on how to use the built-in tools in the application, you'll learn to trust the numbers and you'll have perfect skin tones every single time. Let's jump into the computer and I'll show you how. So first you want to go to your workspace, go to Color, and if you don't see your scopes up, click on Lumetri Scopes. If you don't see any of these, just go to Window and Lumetri Scopes. Make sure they're turned on. You want to have your vector scope and your waveform. So you can just turn them on here. I like to set the brightness to high and set your waveform to Luma. So that way it's just a black and white image. We're just looking at the luminosity of the entire image. The color information we're going to be getting from this line right here. This line right here is the skin tone indicator. So let's get started. The first clip we have selected. First, we're going to do it with the built-in Lumetri Color, and then we're going to do it with Colorista if you have that plugin. And because this is a log shot, we want to make sure that we base color corrected before we start tweaking the skin tones. So looking at over here, we want to make sure that we expand the contrast in the waveform. So we're going to open up the color wheels. First thing I'm going to do is bring down the shadows and then bring up the highlights until the brightest thing in the shot is just about touching. I always like to bring it to about 5% and about 95%. Next, we're just going to add a simple S curve overall just to give it some more contrast. Add some more contrast. And I have a whole dedicated video on how to color correct C-Log footage with no conversion LUTs or plugins. Now that we have a base color correction, let's make sure that the skin tones are actually the proper color that we want. So the first thing that I like to do is make a little mask around the cheek area. And I prefer to go to one of the brightest spots on the face, because that will help determine where the color is. So right now you can see that the skin tone is actually pretty good and it's at about 60 IRE. We don't want the skin tone to be brighter than 70 IRE, between 50 and 70 or 40 and 70 depending on the skin tone. So we're going to open up color wheels again and just ever so slightly tweak it to the yellow. Just shift it over in the direction to make sure that it is, just tweak it ever so slightly to make sure that it's right on that line. And this is where you can add a little bit of saturation if you wanted to, but not too much. So just go into the mask and turn it off. So now we can see that the LumaScope is showing us the brightness of the image from left to right. So this right here is DR, that right there is the window. This gorgeous line right here is that. So you can see that the skin tone is about the brightest at about 70 IRE. And then the blacks don't ever get into full on black. But the skin tone, just double checking when we turn the mask back on, is right on that skin tone indicator. Now this is one of those things, if you really wanted to test it, let's just push it way off. See what happens. We're going to turn off the mask. You can see the skin tone starting to look very move it into the green. And now it's gross. So we move it back to its place. You can see that the skin tone is right on. Now we're going to add Colorista and do the exact same thing. So we're going to open up the control panel. We're going to set our video as log in this case. So we can take a look at, so we can have our scopes open at the exact same time. The shadows to about 5%. We're going to pump up the highlights till they're just about touching 100. We're going to add saturation to the overall shot. Add a little bit of contrast using the curve adjustment. So again, this is the logo here. This line is the face. And when we turn on the opacity again and go to Lumiscopes, that is telling me this, the vector scope is telling me that this is proper skin tone color. So this is before and corrected. One of the other things you can do is use the secondary in Lumetri or in Colorista, where you actually select the skin tone. So in this case, we're selecting just the color of the skin, but this is a little bit more advanced, but it definitely helps you select only the skin. So any color correction that you do only affects the skin and doesn't affect anything else in the scene. It's a good way to just isolate the skin tone, but you have to be very careful to make sure that none of the edges is too hard, and you have to soften out these parameters. Otherwise it can start to look very weird and get weird blotching when you push it a little bit too hard. So make sure you do add a little bit of blur or denoise so you don't get any kind of weird blotching around the edges when you push it a bit too far. You can tweak the skin tone to be perfect without affecting the rest of the image. And at this point, this is where you can start adding in some creative touches, add different colors to the shadows and the midtones without affecting the skin tone too much. And after this point, this is when you can start going in and tweaking and doing all your creative color correction. And this is a simple way to know that your skin tones are correct. Just making sure that you use the vector scope and the Lumiscope to get your skin tone color on the skin tone indicator line, and also keep it between 40 and 70 IRE. Now that you have perfect skin tones, check out this video on how to color grade C-Log footage in Premiere Pro. And here's a playlist of great tips to make better content faster. As always, thanks for watching. Give me a big thumbs up, subscribe. I'm Raphael. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.